Hello and welcome to Bourbon Rocks. Tonight we're going to review Old Rip Van Winkle, aged 25 years. Now about 7 years ago, I reviewed this bourbon on the internet. As far as I know, it was the first review of Pappy 25 in the world on the internet. Since then, a lot of things have changed. It was a great review, but it was kind of boring, and those of you who know me know that I'm not that boring. I'm a lot more fun, so I'm trying to make this review a lot more enjoyable. Plus, also, I have matured a lot in the last 7 years. I've been drinking bourbon my entire life, but at that point in time, I wasn't really able to say why I liked a bourbon. I just knew whether I liked it or not. But I've gone a long ways in my bourbon training since then. I've been out to Kentucky multiple times on the bourbon trail. I actually have become an executive bourbon steward now. I've been training my palate with nosing kits, and so now I'm able to actually better pick up the nuances in the bourbon than I did back then. So I'm hoping to review this again 7 years later and hopefully give you a better review of what I really truly think of it. It's obviously a great bourbon. I said it was good back then, but again, it really was much more of a simplistic view. Today, hopefully, we're going to give you a lot more detail. So, let's start out by discussing the bourbon. It is Old Rip Van Winkle, aged 25 years, otherwise known as Pappy 25. It is extremely rare. There were about 710 bottles that were produced from 11 barrels from the original Stitzelweller distillery in Shively, Kentucky. This was distilled in 1989 and then taken or put into the wood, basically, into the oak, and then taken out of the oak barrels and put into stainless steel in 2014 after 25 years. And then it was bottled in 2017, and that's when I got this bottle. I got it at list price from the Virginia ABC store in a lottery that I did not win, but a friend of mine won, and she offered me the opportunity to purchase it. Since then, this thing has skyrocketed to approximately $59,000, close to $60,000, if you can still find a bottle. They're very rare because it's one of the most sought-after bottles of bourbon on the entire planet. That being said, we would expect it to be extremely good, perhaps the best thing that you've ever consumed. And we're going to see. I've very much liked it. I've been drinking it over the years. You see, 7 years, I've only put about, drank about a half of it. So I save it for special occasions. But we're going to do it again today and see with my greater bourbon knowledge to see if I can give you a much better review of Pappy 25. All right, so as you can see, it's in a Glencairn crystal decanter with a stopper that looks like a light bulb. Usually I'm going to make a smaller pour of this because it is so precious, but you got to give yourself enough to be able to actually taste it. If you try to sip this thing too preciously, you won't really be able to appreciate it, so give yourself a good pour. It's probably going to be a while before I drink this again. I use it just again for special occasions. All right, so first we look at it in the Glencairn glass, and we can see the color is definitely an amber, a reddish brown amber color, darker than most bourbons, but again, it's been in the oak for 25 years. Very heavy body. You can see there's lots of fatty acids and esters in there that's giving it those legs that cling to the glass. And so we're going to nose it first. Now, the last time I reviewed this, of course, I gave the typical bourbon flavors that you find most of the time, your caramels, your oaks, and your vanillas. And of course, they're there. But I'm able to pick up a lot more nuanced flavors than I was able to. Last time, there's a lot of cherry. It reminds me of cherry pie, baked cherry pie. Not a lot of spice on the nose, but definitely a lot sweeter on the nose. Maybe a little blackberry cobbler or like cherry vanilla ice cream with some caramel syrup. I mean, it's really sweet, very fruity. Beautiful nose, beautiful nose. And when we taste it, let's see what the palate does. Give it that Kentucky chew. So amazingly, the palate is not like the nose. I mean, there's some sweetness. There's a little bit of fruit, but a lot more spice comes out. And it's surprising for a wheated bourbon to have, in my opinion, this much spice. There's peppermint, some peppery, a little bit of floralness, almost like rose petals and so forth. But I mean, it's very extremely complex, but really much spicier than you'd expect from a wheated bourbon. It also is 100 proof, but it drinks a lot hotter than that. It feels a little more closer to the 110, 115 to me than 100. The finish is very long. Now the sweetness, that fruitiness that we picked up on the nose comes back a lot more in the finish than it really does in the palate. The palate's a little more spicy, a little more floral, perfumey almost. There's some of that wheat, I guess, gives it that perfuminess, but it's very different. You got your nose and you got your palate coming in very, very sweet, very fruity. That cherry pie, baked cherry pie sort of thing. And then the palate has a lot more spice, more peppermint and so forth to it. But then it comes back in the finish, brings you back to that caramel syrup on that baked pie crust and so forth. It's a wide range, very definitely complex. And again, look at those legs on there. This thing's very creamy mouthfeel, very dense. I mean, it's really good. And I was not able to pick up all of these flavors when I reviewed it the first time. But again, I didn't know as much then. I wasn't as mature. My palate wasn't as mature. So what would I say about Pappy 25? I mean, it's extremely good. It is still definitely one of the best bourbons you're ever going to drink if you can acquire it. It's much more complex than I ever really remember it to be. But again, I understand things a whole lot better than I did back then. Is it worth the price? That's a totally different question altogether. You're not going to find it at any reasonable price now. Even if you go into a bar that happens to still have some of the stuff, they're probably going to charge you close to $1,000 for an ounce. So no, it's definitely not worth the price. Excuse me. But is it over oaked at 25 years? Maybe just a tad bit. There's some heavy tannins in there that come from that oak. I'm going to compare this against the 23 and the 20 and the 15. It might just be a tad bit over oaked. But I mean, there's so much going on in this bourbon. It's just extremely complex. I still have to give it an ace, which if you read my review or on my website, I'll give you, my rating system and so forth. But an ace means basically the most extreme bourbon that you'll ever taste, the one that you'll probably never find. And if you ever get your hands on it, if you've got an ace in your hand, then you're going to win every time. You'll be hard pressed to find this anywhere. But if you ever do, it just depends on how much they're charging you for it. If someone else is paying, get it, because it is going to be one of the best things you've ever drank. Extremely complex, but do you want to pay for it yourself? Probably not. But anyway, we're still going to give it an ace because of its originality, its highly sought afterness, and the fact that there's so much going on in here. But here, cheers. Pappy 25, if you've ever wanted to know what it tastes like. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much.